Hello there, friends. Welcome to another story time with Grandma Bonnie. It's nice that you're here. It's nice to be reading with you. And we'll start by reviewing the story we read last time, which was called A Lost Brother Found. And in this story, Joseph's brothers traveled back to Egypt with their youngest brother Benjamin to buy more food from Joseph to help feed their large family back home. Joseph received the brothers, he gave them a special dinner, and he eventually revealed himself to the brothers. He told them who he was, the long lost brother that they had sold into slavery years and years and years ago. So that was quite a relief for everybody. They all wept together, Joseph and his brothers, and they were joyous to know that Joseph was still alive and that he'd forgiven them for selling him as a slave for their very bad behavior. Then Joseph sent his brothers back home with lots of food and gifts and told them to bring their father back to Egypt so that they would live and prosper during the next 5 years of famine. Up until that point, they'd had 2 years of famine, time without food. And now, because of Joseph's dream, remember, he knew it was going to be 7 years altogether. So he knows that the 2 years that came to get up to 7 years would be 5 more years of famine. So he knew that, and he shared that with his brothers and said, come on back here and you can have plenty of food if you, and then he would get to see his father too. So that's going to be exciting. But the picture that I chose is of Joseph in the center, and you'll see him with his Egyptian garb looking very regal, and then his brothers are all around him at the feast, the dinner that he prepared for them. Very colorful. Lots of food there on the platter too, their feast. All righty. So now we will go to story number 19 from Dr. Hurlbut's book, Making Our Way Through. And story number 19 is called From the Land of Famine to the Land of Plenty. And this story is located in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, chapter 45, verse 25 to chapter 50, verse 26. So let's begin. So Joseph's 11 brothers went home to their old father with the glad news that Joseph was alive and was ruler over the land. It was such a joyful surprise to Jacob that he fainted. But after a time he revived, and when they showed him the wagons that Joseph had sent to bring him and his family to Egypt, old Jacob said, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive, and I will go and see him before I die." Then they went on their journey with their wives and children and servants and sheep and cattle, a great company. They stopped to rest at Beersheba, which had been the home of Isaac and of Abraham, and made offerings to the Lord and worshiped. And that night the Lord appeared to Jacob and said to him, "Jacob, I am the Lord, the God of your father. Fear not to go down to Egypt, for I will go down with you, and there you shall see your son Joseph. And in Egypt I will make of your descendants, those that come from you, a great people, and I will surely bring them back again to this land." They came down to Egypt, 66 of Jacob's children and grandchildren. Joseph rode in his chariot to meet his father and fell on his neck and wept upon him. And Jacob said, "Now I am ready to die, since I know that you are still alive and I have seen your face." And Joseph brought his father in to see King Pharaoh. And Jacob, as an old man, gave his blessing to the king. The part of the land of Egypt where Joseph found for his brothers a home was called Goshen. It was on the east, between Egypt and the desert, and it was a very rich land where the soil gave large harvests of crops. And here's a picture before we turn the page of Jacob's family coming down to Egypt, traveling with their wagons and caravan. Another black and white there, huh? But at that time, and for 5 years after, there were no crops because of the famine that was in the land. During those years, the people of Israel in the land of Goshen were fed, as were all of the people of Egypt, with grain from the storehouses of Joseph. Jacob lived to be almost 150 years old. And before he died, he blessed Joseph and all his sons and said to them, "When I die, do not bury me in the land of Egypt, but take my body to the land of Canaan and bury me in the cave at Hebron with Abraham and with Isaac my father." And Joseph brought his two sons. Did I say Joseph? And Joseph brought his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to his father's bed. Jacob's eyes were dim with age, as his father Isaac had been, and he could not see the two young men. And he said, "Who are these?" And Joseph said, "They are my two sons, whom God has given me in this land." "Bring them to me," said Jacob, "that I may bless them before I die." And Jacob kissed them and put his arms around them, and he said, "I had not thought that I should ever see your face, my son, and God has let me see both you and your children also." Lost my place. And Jacob placed his right hand on Ephraim's head, the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh, the older. Joseph tried to change his father's hands so that his right hand should be on the older son's head, but Jacob would not allow him. And he said, "I know what I am doing. God will bless the older son, but the greater blessing shall be with the younger, for his descendants shall be greater and stronger than the descendants of his brother." And so it came to pass many years after this, for the tribe of Ephraim, the younger son, became greater and more powerful than the tribe of Manasseh, the older son. When Jacob died, a great funeral was held. They carried his body up out of Egypt to the land of Canaan and buried it, as he had said to them, in the cave of Machpelah, or Machpelah, where Abraham and Isaac were buried already. When the sons of Jacob came to Egypt after the burial of their father, they said to one another, It may be that Joseph will punish us now that his father is dead for the wrong that we did to him many years ago. That's the phone ringing in the background. I forgot to silence it. I'll show you the picture of Jacob blessing Ephraim and Manasseh. He's putting his hand on the heads, right? There. So they thought maybe Joseph would punish them now that his father was gone. And they sent a message asking Joseph to forgive them for his father's sake. And again they came and bowed down before him with their faces to the ground. They said, "We are your servants. Be merciful to us." Joseph wept when his brothers spoke to him, and he said, "Fear not. Am I in God's place to punish and to reward? It is true that you meant evil to me, but God turned it to be good, so that all your families might be kept alive. Do not be afraid. I will care for you and for your children." After this, Joseph lived to be a good old age until he was 110 years old. Before he died, he said to his children and to all the children of Israel, who had now increased to very many people, "I am going to die, but God will come to you and will bring you up out of this land into your own land, which he promised to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. When I die, do not bury me in Egypt, but keep my body until you go out of this land and take it with you." So when Joseph died, they embalmed his body as the Egyptians embalmed the bodies of their kings and great men, filling the body with drugs and spices so that it would not decay. And they placed his body in a stone coffin and kept it in the land of Goshen among the people of Israel. Thus Joseph not only showed his faith in God's promise that he would bring his people back to the land of Canaan, but he also encouraged the faith of those who came after him. For as often as the Israelites looked on the stone coffin that held the body of Joseph, they said to one another, "There is the token, the sign that this land is not our home. This coffin will not be buried until we bury it in our own land, the land of Canaan, where God will lead us in his own time." And that's the end of the story, from the land of famine to the land of plenty. And there's one more illustration, which is an illustration of Jacob's tomb on Mount Zion. So his eventual tomb where they bury his body. You can see some grave markers out in the yard and a big stone building. All right. Well, Joseph certainly was a remarkable man, wasn't he? A remarkable family. Our next story, we're getting up there, all the way to story 20. It's called "The Beautiful Baby Who Was Found in a River." I wonder who that is. We'll find out next time. In the meantime, remember to be curious and stay curious. Keep asking those questions and being observant. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.